For generations, we were given a simple formula for building a good life. Work hard, become valuable, earn more, save what you can, and eventually, you'll get ahead. That formula isn't exactly wrong, it's just becoming incomplete, because we're entering an economy where the person working the hardest may earn less than the person who owns the system doing the work. And that changes almost everything we were taught about building wealth. Think about the traditional path. You go to school, you develop a skill, you find a company willing to pay for that skill. Then you spend years becoming better at it. If you become valuable enough, you earn more. For decades, this made sense because human expertise was scarce. A company needed an accountant, so it hired an accountant. It needed a designer, so it hired a designer. It needed someone to write, analyze data, answer customers, build presentations, research competitors, or manage operations. Human labor was required to produce human output, but artificial intelligence is beginning to change that equation, not because humans suddenly have no value, because one human can now produce dramatically more. A marketer with the right tools can generate dozens of ideas in the time it once took to develop a handful. A programmer can build faster. A researcher can analyze information faster. A small business owner can automate tasks that once required additional employees. And as productivity increases, something strange happens. The economic advantage begins moving away from simply doing the work and toward controlling the leverage behind the work. This is one of the most important distinctions in the new economy. Labor gets paid for effort. Leverage gets paid for output. Imagine two people. The first person is incredibly hardworking. They work 10 hours a day and are paid for those 10 hours. The second person creates a digital product once and sells it 10,000 times. The first person may work harder, but the second person has leverage. Now imagine that same principle applied to software, media, intellectual property, automation, online businesses, audiences, and artificial intelligence. Suddenly, an individual can create output that would have required an entire team 20 years ago. And this is where the traditional relationship between work and wealth begins to break, because wealth has never been perfectly correlated with effort. If it were, the hardest working people in society would also be the wealthiest. They aren't. Wealth has historically accumulated around ownership. Ownership of land, ownership of businesses, ownership of stocks, ownership of intellectual property, ownership of systems capable of producing value without requiring the owner's direct labor every single time. AI isn't creating this principle, it's accelerating it. And perhaps more importantly, it's making certain forms of leverage accessible to ordinary people in a way they weren't before. You no longer necessarily need hundreds of employees to build something that reaches hundreds of thousands of people. You don't necessarily need a television network to build an audience. You don't necessarily need a publishing company to distribute ideas. You don't necessarily need an enormous development team to build software. The barriers haven't disappeared, but they are getting lower. And when barriers fall, opportunity shifts. This is why the conversation about AI replacing jobs misses part of the bigger picture. The more interesting question isn't simply, what jobs will disappear? Else, who will own the systems producing the new value? Because if technology allows companies to produce more with fewer people, the productivity gains have to go somewhere. Some will go to consumers through lower costs and better products. Some will go to workers who become exceptionally good at using these tools. But a significant amount can flow toward whoever owns the technology, business, platform, product, audience, or asset producing the output. And that creates a very different wealth equation. For most people, this does not mean quitting their jobs tomorrow. It doesn't mean everyone needs to become an entrepreneur. And it certainly doesn't mean hard work has become irrelevant. Hard work still matters. Skill still matters. Discipline still matters. But those things become dramatically more powerful when they're attached to leverage. A highly skilled person who sells every hour individually has a natural limit. There are only so many hours in a day, but a highly skilled person who turns their knowledge into something scalable changes the equation. Maybe that's software, maybe it's a business, maybe it's intellectual property, maybe it's an audience, maybe it's equity, Maybe it's a product. Maybe it's a system that continues producing value after the initial work is finished. The specific vehicle matters less than the principle. The old question was, how can I become more valuable at my job? The new question is increasingly, how can I make my value scalable? That is a fundamentally different way of thinking, and it may become one of the defining financial questions of the next decade. Consider what happens when AI makes certain skills easier to access. Knowing how to perform a task may become less scarce. But knowing what should be done, what should be built, which problem matters, what people actually want, and how to turn an idea into something valuable becomes more important. Execution becomes cheaper, judgment becomes more valuable, and ownership becomes more powerful. This is why someone with average technical ability but exceptional judgment may outperform someone with extraordinary technical ability who never learns how to apply it. The tools are becoming available to everyone. The advantage comes from what you do with them. We've seen versions of this before. The internet made information abundant. Social media made distribution more accessible. Smartphones put powerful technology into billions of hands. Each shift created enormous companies, but it also created opportunities for individuals who understood the new leverage early. AI may be another one of those shifts, except this time, the leverage isn't only distribution, it's production itself. One person can research faster, create faster, analyze faster, communicate faster, test ideas faster, run parts of a business faster. That doesn't guarantee wealth. Most people with access to powerful technology will not become wealthy because of it. Access is not the same as advantage. The advantage comes from understanding what the technology changes, and one of the things it changes is the value of scale. If your income depends entirely on the number of hours you personally work, your earning potential remains tied to your time. If some portion of your income comes from something you own that can scale beyond your time, the equation changes. At first, the difference may seem insignificant. A small investment portfolio, a tiny online business, a piece of intellectual property, a digital product that earns almost nothing, equity in something with potential, an audience of a few hundred people. These things can look unimpressive compared with a large salary, but they represent a different economic model. One rewards your current labor, the other gives you exposure to future growth. The goal isn't to stop working hard, it's to stop assuming hard work alone guarantees economic security, because the world is becoming increasingly good at multiplying output. And in a world where output can scale rapidly, ownership matters. The people who understand this won't necessarily abandon traditional careers. Many will use those careers to fund investments, build skills, learn industries, develop relationships, and slowly acquire or create assets of their own. The shift can be gradual, but the mental shift has to happen first. Instead of asking only, how much can I earn? Start asking, what can I own? What can I build once and benefit from repeatedly? What skills become more powerful when combined with technology? What am I creating today that can continue producing value tomorrow? Those questions won't make you wealthy overnight. Nothing reliable will, but they point towards something much larger happening underneath the AI revolution. The future of wealth may belong less to the people who can simply work the longest, and more to the people who understand how to make their work multiply. Hard work isn't dead. It's being upgraded. And in the new economy, the greatest financial advantage may not be how much work you can do. It may be how much value your work can create after you've stopped working. The future of wealth will belong to the people who understand how to make their work multiply. Welcome to the new wealth.